Hi, Hunter Hastings here. AI has penetrated the business world, not as large language models with which we converse and we use as a kind of turbocharged search, but as AI agents. AIs that can act for us, that can do things on our behalf. And since action in entrepreneurship is value creation, these AI agents are value creators. That means we need to think of them not in technology terms, but in value creation terms. What are the customer needs that they can help us fulfill? What wants will customers have that AI agents can provide the solution for? That means our thinking about AI agents must be value creation thinking. We're talking with Michael Walker today, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of SmithOS. And he's a technologist who thinks that way. He puts the customer first and thinks about the value that AI can create. He's got a long history in AI, and his company builds very specialized AI agents that can be integrated and coordinated to put together an end-to-end process where these multiple specialized agents do the best possible job at each step and result in a process iOS. Let's talk to him.
This is the Value Creators Podcast. Value creation is the sole purpose of any business and every business, and for all of us as entrepreneurs. Listen to great value creators as they share their successes, trials, and lessons learned. Join us as we explore how to think as value creators, how to act as value creators, and how to view business through the lens of value creation.
Michael, welcome to the Value Creators Podcast.
Hi, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure for us. We're focused on value creation, and value creation is kind of changing for business these days. And you're using AI specifically for value creation. So we're going to explore how that works. You're helping other people to use AI for value creation, so it'll be useful for a lot of our listeners. But I wanted to start with something else that you wrote on Substack, Michael. You were saying that for startup businesses and technology-oriented businesses, you must focus on the customer first. You must focus on benefits and helping customers to achieve what they want to achieve. So you're talking like a marketer as opposed to a technologist. And I just wanted to go there for a second. What makes you think that way, and how did you arrive at that point of view?
Yeah, it's I have a long background in technology companies, particularly SaaS startups. And depending on your founding team in a SaaS startup, many of them can, let's say, drink the Kool-Aid a little bit too much when it comes to their own technology. I learned very early on what matters is what problems can you solve for the people you're trying to solve problems for, and how efficient and frankly, how good are you at solving those problems. People don't really care what's underneath the hood, right? They want to know, can I get from A to B? Can you help me do that better, more efficient, cheaper than I do it today? That's what's most important. When you get too far into feature selling rather than value selling, you've already made your first mistake. And it's a pitfall that many software and SaaS companies, particularly startups, fall in very often. So when I was writing that piece, I thought that I wanted to preface all of the AI talk that I'd be doing by saying, look, if you're not focused on solving your customers' problems first, you've already made a fatal error. And so that just seemed like the most logical place for me to start.
Yeah. Well, it's really helpful, I think. And I one of the things I think about when you talk like that is that we marketers think about empathy. You talk about customer problems and problem solving, which is right. But to understand how they perceive their own problems, you've got to have a lot of empathy, which is, we think is human. It's not computable. It's emotional. So where does AI stand in relationship to empathy? Can it be empathetic?
I think it can mimic being empathetic, right? Whether it can truly be empathetic is probably another question. But really common use case for artificial intelligence is what we call sentiment analysis. So if I put a particular idea or language out into the world, I can monitor the response to that, even if it's in aggregate form. right? Is the general sentiment to my idea positive or negative? I can look at social media trends. I can look at things like click-through rates in an email. So I think when we talk about AI and empathy, it's probably one of the most crucial elements to consider when you're getting into AI. But I think we can use the tool for the data side of it, things like sentiment analysis. But the origin of that empathy comes from us, from the marketers or the developers or the people creating or utilizing the technology. So we're not out of the woods yet in letting AI sort of handle the emotional capacity for us. That's still, the onus is still on us as the human to do that.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how that evolves and what role we play and what role the AI agents play. One more term from your Substack, Michael, that really rang a bell with me. You said thinking through the opportunity for AI, it's got to require a generalized or a mass market. There's nothing there until there's a mass market for it. So mainstream market was the actual term that you used. How do you think about a mainstream market, and is it here yet?
Yeah, I mean, in AI in particular, I think it's closer than it's ever been, and the proof of that is ChatGPT. Um, in most conversations I have with people around artificial intelligence, the percentage of people who see AI and ChatGPT, or AI is synonymous with ChatGPT, is really high, and that was surprising to me. Because AI has been an academic field for such a really long time, where only the people in the know really understood not only the implications but even the nature of it, like what it really is and how it works. Now we've introduced at a very small scale artificial intelligence to the masses via OpenAI and ChatGPT. So I don't know that it's a mass market in and of itself quite yet, but we'll see the injection of AI into every single mass market. And I think we'll even see that starting with things like at a societal level, like politics, right? And campaigns. And I just saw a big news report on that whole idea this morning. So AI itself, I don't know, and agentic AI, like AI agents, I wouldn't say is a mass market yet, but we're propelling at a rate that I don't think we've ever seen before to getting to that point.
Yeah, and as AI becomes embedded in all of our iPhones and our Android phones, we'll be engaging in it as a market without really knowing about it. It'll become second nature.
Absolutely. I think we already are to a big degree, right? You look at things like Google advertising, for example, the machine learning and the algorithms behind that to what advertisements Hunter sees versus Michael sees, for example, is just so, it's mind-blowing, when you see the data that goes into it, how it's analyzed. So we are all in one way or another already in this world of AI, and most of us, we're not fully aware of that yet.
Right. We're immersed in it like fish in water. So let's get to the specifics of your current business, Michael. You're the CMO at SmythOS, SMYTH, capital O, capital S. We'll link to that in our site notes so that people can explore it. I've been to the site. It says really fascinating things about the future of AI and AI agents. But tell us what your vision and mission are at SmythOS, how it was founded, how it's progressed, how you're thinking about vision and mission.
Yeah, well, the short version of how it was founded was the founders of SmithOS founded a previous generative AI tool called Ink for All. And this was pre-ChatGPT. It was a tool that could handle mainly SEO content writing. So you could give it keywords and a topic and a target audience, and it could put together really high quality, great content that had a higher propensity to rank than competitive content. Fast forward a couple of years, and then OpenAI released ChatGPT. And when our founders, particularly our CTO, Alexander De Ritter, when he saw that, he said, hey, the Gen AI wars are coming soon, right? And we see that today with OpenAI versus Anthropic, ChatGPT versus Claude. And he said, what if we had one place where you could bring any web application or any tool you're already using with any large language model, and we could orchestrate those things together and build AI agents. And that was the origin of SmithOS. And our goal is we want everyone, whether you are a solopreneur, just getting started as an entrepreneur, or whether you're a Fortune 500 company, to be able to come in and build truly valuable AI agents that can complete almost any workflow or any task automation that you needed to do without the need for complex development, coding, spending years in school learning how to do that. And that's the goal. And I think we're working closer to that every day.
Well, that's fascinating, and it's a huge claim, and it opens up a huge perspective, I think. Let's talk about the OS. You talk about an AI operating system that connects networks of specialized AI agents so they can work together in harmony. You call it coordinated AI. So explain that to us a little bit more. I'm an old guy. I've got the picture of Adam Smith's pin factory in his original work in economics in 1776. He talks about the division of labor. And if you break up tasks into smaller parts, each one's an expert on the individual part, you get much higher productivity and speed and output. And so it sounds like that's what you're doing with AI in kind of a way.
That's exactly right. And if you think of probably one of the most well-known examples of, Adam Smith's ideas at work was the assembly line, right? Where you had an assembly line where each section was focused on doing one thing and doing it over and over again and getting really, really good at that part of the process. And then out comes a tremendously consistent and high quality product. That's exactly what we aim to do with Smith. And inside of SmithOS, you can build an agent that is trained on any particular skill. So using SEO, for example, you can have an agent that just does keyword research, right? And it looks at things like, it uses tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush and Google Trends, and it analyzes this and it says, here's the best keywords for your business to focus on to rank and get traffic, but it's highly trained on that one thing. And then that can pass its information and talk to another AI agent that is highly trained on content writing, for example, where it looks at the semantic indicators and programmatic indicators of high-ranking content, but it specializes in taking the keywords from the first agent and then writing the actual content as that agent, and then it can pass it to another agent that takes that content and turns it into emails that you can disseminate to your email list and publishes it to WordPress. So it's the exact same idea. It's like if you have a high-functioning team, whether it's a marketing team or any team, it's the same thing, even in sports, right? You play a position, you do your part really, really well. We've taken that basic premise into the world of AI, where you can build these highly specialized and trained AI agents that can work together or orchestrate to build a sum much greater than its parts, right? Build a product that is just highly consistent and also highly successful because it's a bunch of parts, a bunch of agents that do one thing incredibly well. And it works 24/7, 365. It doesn't take days off or takes breaks.
Yeah. Well, that's a fascinating picture, as I said. I was thinking about use cases that we might explore, and I wanted to try this on you. Here at the Value Creators, we have a process for generating innovation ideas, the solving of the problems that you talked about. Not their implementation, but their design. We call it NABC. So there's a step that says identify the customer needs. That's the N. The A is the approach. What's my approach to meeting those needs? The B is assessing the benefits over the cost to make sure it has value to the customer. And the C is looking around at competition and alternatives and making sure that you've got a unique position. So we tried feeding that framework into ChatGPT. We explained it to it, and then we use iteration to go through and try and get better results. So that kind of works, but I wondered whether that kind of a process, is that the right thing that your coordinated AI agents could do? How would you go about solving that problem of generating new innovation ideas?
Well, you started in the right place, right? I think the key to a successful agent like that is what we call the context documentation, the reference data. So in this particular example, you could start by creating an agent that's very similar to how you would create like a custom GPT. But how I would do it and how Smith views it is what you would build in ChatGPT, for example, is just one component of the overall agent. And what you want are different steps before and after that are iterative. So you could have the first component that helps you with, let's say, the target audience identification.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, the problem that we're trying to solve is for business leaders in the insurance industry, as an example. Then what you can do is you can have supplemental, say, context documentation, or what we call data pools in SmithOS. That is just a bunch of similar trends or thought processes specifically for the insurance industry. Then you could have that component feed the information or the output to your custom GPT, for example, because in SmithOS you can use custom GPTs as a plugin in your workflow. So you could feed it to your custom GPT that then generates an idea. Then what you could do is you could have another component that, let's call it like a stress test component. So you could say, hey, I want you to heavily critique the idea that comes out of here based on these 3 or 4 components, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to critique it for feasibility, for cost, for timing of implementation, whatever it may be. And now you have sort of 3 different steps in the agent process. One is contextualizing for, in this case, the insurance industry. The second one is now formulate the idea based on the format that you guys have put together over your time. And then the third step is now I want you to stress test this idea and give the feedback to the second one. You can create a loop. So now that second component analyzes the feedback and comes up with version 2 or iteration 2 of the idea. And you could kind of continually run that until the AI gets to a point where it says, hey, we think we've got this pretty close,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've stress tested it 3 times. We think the outcome is pretty good. And then you could pick it up from there and review it. So that's one example of how you could set it up.
Yeah. That's brilliant. So I get the division of labor and the integration aspect of it. Another use case I was thinking of, Michael, is for thinking about AI to improve the quality of our technological investments and therefore economic growth. So if I were to start a venture capital fund, I need lots of people who can generate the deal flow, analyze the deal flow, look at the term sheets, do the market analysis, think about the cap table, think about the returns and all the possible outcomes, and then it can compare deals with other deals and finally make a decision. It's a lot of people typically do that. It strikes me that might be another good application for AI agents.
I think it's a perfect one. And I smile because I actually used to work with an emerging growth investment bank for some time, not on the banking side or as an analyst, but I would help them with their marketing automation. And before ChatGPT, or let's call it the ChatGPT era, they spent 3 years and a lot of money building an internal portal that does almost exactly what you've described. Right? It looks at a potential investment versus similar past investments. And here are the different variables to be considered for this investment. What would the forecast or projections look like? That to me is a use case tailor-made for AI, right? Because it has several kind of baseline components that work really well with AI. One is you have so much past data that you can feed it. And the more data that you can give into an AI agent, the more specific and tailored that agent can be to the outcome that you need to derive. But number 2 is that when you're thinking of a deal flow from an investment standpoint, there are, you have your due diligence and you may have your modeling or your forecasting, but you have all these different areas inside of a deal flow that are highly specific and they require very, very trained and educated minds to kind of look at. That's perfect for kind of an AI workflow, as you can train different components on each step of that deal flow, bring those all together in one, what we would call agent, and you would have a unbelievably, maybe biased, but I think a much better way of analyzing these potential deals based on that deal flow than the way it's been done traditionally.
And presumably the AI could look at the outcome results uh, as they occur, and maybe it's got some history as well, and that it should be more effective and more efficient in allocating resources. So is that a prospect for us, that the economy is going to become more and more productive because we're more accurate, we cut out waste, we make better bets? Is that what you see?
In a world where everything goes right, absolutely. I'll say there's a big piece to this equation that we refer to as the government, and once they get involved with something, there's no telling what direction it's going to go. So, but in an ideal world, absolutely right. I think, look, AI can make individuals better at their jobs. It can help automate the mundane and the tedious tasks that people spend a lot of time on, and it frees us up, Michael and Hunter as individuals, to think of the creative side, right? To do the critical thinking, to do more of the brainstorming kind of activities, and it automates all the things that maybe we'd spend 40 to 60% of our time doing today, spreadsheets and documentation and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I think, look, if we, and by we I mean society, if we do this thing right, the AI thing right, I think it can absolutely have those outcomes that you mentioned, and a lot of other positive outcomes
Yeah.
for that matter.
So let's go to that question of the individual, Michael. First, one of the pictures that I have in my mind, which you've just described very well, is that a firm with a project can get a lot more leverage out of more AI agents and fewer people. So one of the structural implications of that is that the nature of firms might change. There'll be more technology and fewer people. I'm thinking they might be smaller too, because you don't need all that bureaucracy. You don't need all that divisionalization. You can specialize with greater intensity. So maybe the economy will be made up of a lot more small and medium firms, as we call them today, as opposed to the big giants. Do you have a point of view about that?
Yeah, I think my view is I don't know that let's say a head count for any particular for firms would necessarily drop, but your productivity per individual will skyrocket, and eventually your revenue per employee is going to skyrocket along with it. Because what I can do as Michael, the individual, just equipped with, let's say, the internet and spreadsheets and maybe a couple of SaaS platforms, is a fraction of a percent of what I can do once I have those same things empowered by AI, right? Because I can plug that software into the AI, I can plug my spreadsheets into the AI, and it can do so much of that analysis and trend finding and all of that sort of stuff together. So I think it's a world where it's not necessarily that we reduce headcount or that a workforce is replaced by AI. It's where human ingenuity is enhanced by AI, it's supplemented by AI. So I think both individuals and organizations become more productive and more efficient. And I think in turn they can grow at a much more steady rate than kind of your typical high run rate growth, and then having to pull back because of market conditions. For example, you can stabilize in a much more predictable managed atmosphere because AI can supplement your individuals rather than necessarily replace them.
What happens to those SaaS companies and system of record companies like Salesforce.com and so on that perhaps you don't need them anymore? I don't have to enter data into those things. I can just have the AI agent take my instructions. It'll take care of all that back office stuff. Do they go away? Do they shrink? Do they go in different directions? What do you think happens?
I think if they're smart, they pick up the phone and they call us at SmithOS and say, "Hey, how can we make this work?" No, but I think CRMs, for example, there's always going to be a need, right? There's always going to be a need for, let's say, because you're never going to replace old-fashioned relationship building. Relationship sales is, at least in my view, it's always going to be the way sales are done. So there's a scenario where, Hunter's interested in a product or service that I'm selling. And I still want to be able to go back and look at the CRM and say, when's the last time I spoke with Hunter? What were the notes on that call? So on and so forth. But what I see for them, particularly Salesforce and the HubSpots of the world, is they have the power of something like SmithOS behind them, where they can automatically enrich their data, for example, from other data providers. They can suggest the next move for a deal. So they can analyze past deals inside of your CRM. You can look at current deals in the pipeline and say, hey, based on the last 10 deals you've done, you need to get in touch with this individual within the next 4 days. You need to get a term sheet in front of them within the next 24 hours. And it can look at all that historical data and kind of give you a playbook for creating new deals, just as an example. So I don't think they'll be replaced. I see it similarly to how I see individual employees. AI is just going to enhance what they've already been offering over the last decade or so.
So if I want to design a new system, I've got a project or a problem to solve, or even a new company that I'm starting, or maybe an existing company. I come to SmithOS. What's my relationship, to use that word, with you? Do I come with the challenge broken down into pieces already, or do you tell me how to break it down and then you design the AI agents for it? Tell me about that relationship between the owner of the problem and you as the designer of the solution.
Yeah, we can be as involved or as hands-off as you'd like. So at heart, we're a SaaS company, right? Meaning that we have our platform that we offer at a subscription, either monthly or yearly. So if you're somebody who has a really good handle on AI literacy and how it can help solve problems, and you just want to use the tool for what it does really well, you can of course do that. But we also have my biased view, admittedly, the most experienced and the best AI service delivery team in the world. These are people who have been working on this nature of question and these kinds of problems for a long time. And you can come with nothing but your frustration and say, hey, I've been facing this problem for a really long time. I have a feeling AI can help, but I don't know what that looks like. And our team can take it from there and understand your business and your workflows and the tools you're using and suggest, hey, here's a good starting point. We can design the agent for you. We can build it for you. We can manage and implement it for you. So it really depends on what you're looking for. We can handle all of it, or we can just give you the world's best agent building tool and let you run with it.
Yeah. Well, it's a great interface. You can consult and design and implement. That's always a great combination. So, which brings me to another point about breaking down these projects or challenges into their individual components. That sounds to me like it's different than the traditional structure of a company. You've got a marketing department, a customer relations department, a production department, a data analytics department. It sounds like that departmental way of thinking, that siloed way of thinking, as people call it, goes away when you've got these coordinated AIs because they're all naturally integrating with each other. Is that right? And how do you think about the future internal structure of a firm?
No, I don't think the internal structure necessarily would change. What we do when we look at a problem and we're trying to envision a solution, in this case, an agentic AI solution, so building an AI agent, rather than looking at an aggregate and call it the problem, and then envision another aggregate that we call the solution, we break the problem down by components. And inside of a singular AI agent, the agent is made up of various components. And one component may be analyzing data from an existing software source that you have, or from a spreadsheet or a data lake. The next component may be make inferences based on that analysis on what to do next. And then a third component may be, hey, actually develop this asset for us, this one pager or this email or this website or whatever it may be. Then all of those components together that solve the problem you initially came with, that's called an agent. So I think the internal dynamics of a firm or an organization would very much exist as they do today. You need marketing to market and sales to sell, and your technology team to develop and keep you secure. But the way we look at the problem solution matrix internally when we're building AI, we try to break that down in components. So we know here's the steps in which we can optimize. Here's what we can automate. Here's what we can make more efficient. And that's where the outcome becomes exponentially better, right? Because you're looking at each component of a problem and developing a correlating component for the solution.
Yeah. Okay. We're delighted to announce the Value Creators online course. For entrepreneurs in every kind of business, big, small, or medium, at every stage, in every industry, our course provides the foundations and principles on which to build success. Simple, clear purpose and principles give rise to creativity, innovation, and competitively superior business action. There are 11 foundational principles or mental models that together cohere into the value business model. Principles for value generation, principles for value operations, principles for value finance and accounting, and principles for value sustainability, as well as the new knowledge accumulation you'll need for continuous innovation. These principles are delivered by top business professors from top business schools: Mark Packard, Per Byland, Gordon Miller, David Rapp, and Bart Vanderhagen. You'll find video lessons from them, along with downloadable tools, processes, and other valuable content. Master these lessons, and you'll master the most important skill in business: value creation. Go to thevaluecreators.com and click the course link. One of the images that one of our folks on the show came up with was the idea of your AI agent as a team member. So I'm working on a team, maybe it's an innovation team or it's a marketing team, and there's a number of people on that team, and some of them are humans and some of them are digital AI agents, and we figure out how to collaborate for the best result. Is that a good image? Do you buy into that?
That's exactly it. That's where we are. That's where we're working towards right now. And so one of the ways we've done that is we've released what's called a chat feature with the agent. So instead of having to just take an action that triggers the workflow of an agent, you can send it a message, right? Just like you would send a Slack message or a team message. You just send a message to the agent and say, hey, agent Michael, can you help me do A, B, and C? It understands the instructions, and based on how it's trained, it can go and complete that task for you. So it's like having a digital team, as we call it. You can build your digital dream team, and that could be a combination of both humans and virtual team members, digital team members that are AI agents. Yeah. So I think you're spot on.
I love that because that's a good image for the agentic AI, as you call it, future. That, hey, we're all on this team together, and that's it. Kind of comfortable, high potential place to be. So another potential for that AI agent, Michael, is the AI CEO. We got this position in companies called CEO. It's kind of a decision-making, resource allocating, problem-solving, resolving kind of position. Why not an AI agent as CEO? Do you ever think about that?
Well, if my CEO is watching, absolutely not. It would be impossible to replace. Look, I think there's a world where AI agents comprise a lot of the C-suite. Because when you think about it, your C-suite are decision makers, right? And as a CMO, a lot of my job is looking at the numbers and the data, and are our trend lines where they need to be to reach the goals that we've set for the quarter and that sort of thing. And I have to do my best to analyze that and look at past performance and try to extrapolate that into the future. And who's to say that AI couldn't do that just as well as a lot of us could? I would say that the component that I don't know that we can really, at least for now, hand off to AI is the vision building, the common vision building between your team members, the managing of other team members and human beings. That's an element where, especially for a CEO, that's a big part of the job, right? Getting everybody on the same page, driving towards the same goals, really believing in those goals. That's not something that I see AI doing, at least in the foreseeable future. AI is much better at finding a repetitive task or a set of repetitive tasks, automating that and doing it to such a high efficiency and consistency level that you really don't have to think about it anymore, right? And we're just free to focus on those other areas of the strategic thinking and creative and the empathetic marketing type things.
Well, I think you're probably right, but let me challenge you with the opposite point of view, which we sometimes explore, which is that the idea of vision and mission coming from the top, and then you manage the sharing of it top down. should actually come bottom up. It should come from the interaction of individuals, and some of those individuals might be AIs. And that interaction produces the outcomes and the feedback loops, and it gets us to share a vision. Hey, I see how we can get to where we need to go. Maybe there's some shared intent to begin with, but the vision emanates from that interaction. So consider that. I think the AI can help us with vision and mission.
No, I think you're spot on. I agree. I would say it probably very much depends on the size and type of organization as well. With my background in startups and even later stage startups, oftentimes your CEO and founders are holding a lot of stuff together by duct tape, right? Like they're just trying to not let it break and to get to the next point to where they can then build something a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. I think in those scenarios, that's where agility is really important. Risk taking is really important. Trying new things is really important. And so, yeah, while I think there are components that, AI could do really well as a CEO, I'll say it's more risk adverse in some areas.
Really?
It's not as ready to step outside of the bounds of what would maybe be the right answer. Where a lot of times in startup, the magic happens when you just step totally outside of the comfort zone and try something totally new. You learn something new about your employees. You learn something new about your customers. Maybe you go into a whole new market altogether. So yeah, I think you're right in some areas, and I think there's others where sometimes it just takes a human being being a little bit crazy to really figure it out.
So what if I asked my AI agent, hey, run your wildest experiments, come up with your craziest ideas, whatever the right prompt engineering is for that? What would happen?
Yeah,
Can't it do that?
It could, but I would just say this: at some point, the agent's trained on a specific set of data and within specific parameters to accomplish a task. Whereas human beings are much more complicated, right? Our every day we've got our personal lives with our professional lives and everything in between. So I think the ability for us to have a higher elasticity from the starting point is probably still a big competitive advantage, or score one for the humans.
Yeah.
But you're right. An agent it can help you think of some pretty out of the box ideas as well.
Yeah, the word we're exploring for that, Michael, is intent, the entrepreneurial intent. I want to serve the market. I want to help people. I know that there's going to be some exploration about how exactly we do it. It's less constructed than vision and mission, but it is, as you say, more human. It's an intent to serve people, and I think that's the human part that we'll retain. So,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it sort of goes back to where we started the conversation, and kind of what I wrote about in the Substack is, in my view, intent is everything, or intentionality at least is absolutely everything. As we go through the early days of artificial intelligence, some technology is going to go above and beyond what it promises, and some is going to do exactly the opposite. Some's going to have unintended consequences. But if your intent is really well defined, and here's what I want to get out of this, here's what we're moving towards, and here's who we're doing that for, then it allows you to make mistakes in a way where you're failing forward, right? And so I think just having that intent in mind, and then having the right intentions to follow through on it, can get you really, really far in a world where the technology is just so new and the market is really, really nascent.
Yeah, it's a good vision, I think. One other vector, Michael, that people are talking about now is that the mode of interaction with these tools is changing. The mode of interacting with computing is changing. We're used to, typing onto screens, but now we're talking to Siri, and we're talking to Alexa, we're talking to ChatGPT. It has a voice function. We've got vision coming up with the Meta glasses and that kind of thing. We've got gesture control, which Apple is introducing with its earpods and so on like that. How will that change how we think about technology. We're talking to it now. We're looking at it in the eye. We're dealing in a different way. How will that change our thinking?
Yeah, well, you nailed it. Number one, it becomes much more natural, right? When you don't have to be sitting in front of a large PC that can't move anywhere, and we create these new things called laptops. Now I'm able to use that technology more frequently and in more different places. Then you roll out very similar technology to a phone that's always in your pocket, and it becomes even more natural. Now, when you can remove even the text component or the method of interaction to things like voice and some would say soon even maybe thought, right, with Neuralink and things like that, it becomes almost like second nature to us. And this is where I think the true magic of AI is going to happen, where when the input from humans is basically second nature, and then the analysis and output from the AI is so refined and in tune with the input method, now nothing's off the table, right? Even the things you do in your day-to-day life, like cooking and shopping and route planning and planning trips and everything, those two things have a beautiful synergy, right? Because I can just pull up my phone and speak to ChatGPT and, hey, I'm planning a trip to Italy, and here are the things I really like to do. Here's what I want to avoid. Can you help me think about the best way to do this trip? And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT goes and it reads a bunch of travel blogs, right? And it reads a bunch of articles for planning a trip to Italy. It combines that analysis with the input that you've given it, and it tailors a perfect trip made for you, just as one example. So I think the interaction method contributes directly to what the input looks like for artificial intelligence. And the better the input, the better the output. So as we get more comfortable and familiar interacting with technology in general, the method in which we give input to our artificial intelligence just gets better, which means the output just gets better.
Yeah. It's a lovely thought. It becomes the natural way of living. I think about doing all my work on a bike ride, talking to my AI assistant and getting it all done that way.
That's exactly right. I think of can I have my meetings and do my analysis and my budget planning while I'm out walking the dogs, right? And I think when the answer to that becomes yes, we've reached the next step or the next peak in artificial intelligence.
Well, let's just ask the what could go wrong question, Michael, that people are always talking about with AI. There are the doomsayers who say it's it's going to overwhelm us, it's going to restrict us, not enable us. What do you worry about at SmithOS about AI escaping or doing bad things? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, of course we think about it. To me, but the first concern I have is really not what is it going to build a mind of its own and start taking actions. What I think about is, I mean, it goes back to the word used earlier, which is intent. If somebody, let's just say a bad actor, is really well versed in artificial intelligence and goes into it determined to use the AI for a negative outcome, and it understands the power and the ability that the artificial intelligence has, that I think is the first concern that we should all have. Is it's not about does the AI go off the rails and something kind of crazy happened, although that's something that I think the research and academic side and then the oversight aspect should come into play. But I'm more concerned with who are the bad actors out there, and in what ways may they want to exert negative influence or cause intentional chaos from this technology. That's where my mind goes first.
Yeah. Well, that's right. It all comes down to human intent. So, Michael, let's wrap up there. We can link to SmithOS on our website and all of our various social media. We'll link to your Substack. Is there any other way that you'd like people to find you and find out about SmithOS?
No, sir. I would just say for anyone who maybe hasn't really gotten into the world of AI yet, or you're a little hesitant, or maybe there's even a little bit of fear there, it's overwhelming. We've just launched a completely free academy called SmithOS Academy. You can go in and we have intro programs that help you understand what are large language models, what are AI agents, what are the various components, and we have courses that go all the way through to training you to be a certified AI agent engineer, and it's all completely free. So if you're looking for somewhere to start, you're not really sure how to get your journey started, start there at academy.smithos.com, completely free, and it's a really good springboard into the world of AI.
Good. Well, we'll make that link as well. I really appreciate the way that you and your firm are thinking about AI as a value creator, to use our term. You're doing it as a collaborative interaction with humans and technology. You got a very positive vision, and I'm really excited for what will come in the future. So, Michael, thanks for your time today. We've really learned a lot, and we appreciate it.
Hunter, thank you for having me. It was a joy to be here.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Value Creators Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can visit thevaluecreators.com for links and resources related to this episode, and check out hunterhastings.com for more content on entrepreneurial business management based on value creation principles.